Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric on our brand new series, Translation Theater, where I take a look at some of my favorite or most impactful translations from fans of all time. And starting this series off, there's the one big granddaddy of translations, and that is Policenauts. This is an absolutely incredible and epic visual novel game from Hideo Kojima, who obviously went on to direct Metal Gear Solid, and this is just one of the best experiences I've ever had in gaming, and before the translation project, you couldn't really experience it. Before we get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down below as well. But this translation is the translation that all other translations should aspire to be, because not only is it bringing a game that is so amazing to English speakers, but the translation works in such a way that it gives you context and understanding. The difference between a direct translation versus kind of a conversational translation is a huge deal in these sort of things, and this translates both the literal story as well as some more intonation into the mix. But if you've never played Policenauts or you've never heard of it, it is a visual novel. You're either going to love this genre or you're going to hate it. I absolutely love it. Your mileage may vary though. This is a love it or leave it sort of game. But I just love everything that Policenauts does. If you can't tell already a little bit from the beginning, this is basically Lethal Weapon in the future. It's basically Riggs and Murtaugh in space. Now there's a lot more going on than just that, but that's kind of the kickoff to kind of think about what's happening in this game. And up until the translation project, people knew this existed, and people could play Snatcher in English, the game that precedes this and has some thematic ties back and forth between the two games, but Policenauts is locked off for the longest time. I originally played this game on the 3DO with a translated walkthrough guide next to me, loved it, but didn't get as much story as I wish I could have. But now, with the translation project, which is some years old, we get the full English story. We get to see what's going on between Jonathan and his wife, Lorraine, who he lost after an accident in space. Now, I'm keeping some of the story elements vague because if you've never played this before and you want to play it in English, I really don't want to spoil too many things. This is just the introduction to the game. There will be a minor spoiler at the end, but honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It just is the inciting incident to kick the whole game off. But you can see Jonathan's partner there, Ed Brown, definitely a Danny Glover stand-in. And this game is just so incredibly rich with story. There's details everywhere. It's a world-building game. The world that Policenauts inhabits needs all of this contextual detail, all of these text entries, or else the world doesn't become alive. It doesn't become a living, breathing thing. And that's why fan translations are so incredibly important, because obviously this was never officially released in English. So the only way for an English-speaking audience to enjoy it is through a fan translation like this. Jonathan's a negotiator, and unfortunately his last negotiations seemed to go south because the kid he was looking for probably already had his organs cut out. This game can be quite grim. It takes a really dark look at the future and what's happening and how society's gotten even worse than where we currently already are. And I love that about the game. But the real question is, what happened to Jonathan and what happened to his wife? And that's what kicks off the entire story in this game. And I will tell you, the story is absolutely incredible. I would say it's a 10 out of 10 story all day long. But there's a knock at the door. Who is it? Oh, and the soundtrack to this game is also incredible. So I'm going to let you watch the cutscene, get some of the music, get some of the story. I'll be back in like 45 seconds and tell you more about why, if you've never played Policenauts, you owe it to yourself to do so. But enjoy.
Jonathan, 久しぶり。
ロレイン。
そう。私よ、ジョナサン。28年ぶりね。
今頃どうして？
私、おばさんになったでしょ？あなたは変わらないわ。あの頃のまま。
ロレイン、なぜ今になって俺のところに？
許してもらおうなんて思ってないわ。厚かましいのも分かってる。でも頼れる人がいないの。あなたしか。
何があったんだ？
助けてほしいの。私の夫が大変なことに。
The music in Policenauts is incredible, and the voice acting is incredible too. And with the English translation on the screen, we can enjoy that amazing voice acting while also understanding fully what's going on in the story. Because I will say, when I originally played this game, when it was not in English and I had a story translation next to me, it was a literal translation and it was messy. You did not get the fine details of what was happening in the story, and that's why a great translation like this is so incredibly important. Because if somebody translates something literally from one language to the next, it makes no sense. If someone does a contextual translation and translates that language into something we would understand, you know, as a native speaker of English, it is so much better. But you'll see here in the story, it's basically kicked off. Jonathan's ex-wife has come because something's happened to her husband on Beyond Coast, the basically city in space. He's gone missing, she needs somebody to find him, and who better to do that than her ex-husband, who used to be a space cop, or Policenaut in that respect, and is now a private investigator in old LA. And I just love it. It's neo-noir. It's got all of the trappings of a classic noir tale, but it's set in a sci-fi future. And the storytelling in this, like I've said before, is just impeccable. I kind of wish Hideo Kojima had stuck more to stories like this. I love Metal Gear Solid. It's a great franchise up until 5, where it kind of got killed a little bit. But the storytelling in that, while great, it's just a little messy. And this is that spoiler moment. If you don't want to know what's going to happen, maybe stop watching here, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. But this story is told more in a serious manner. Of course, there's still Kojima-style jokes inside of it, and there's a little bit of funniness here and there, and a little bit of perviness too, to be quite honest with you, but nothing too bad. But this is a straight story told straight. It's not too jokey, and I love that about it. Now, of course, because it is a visual novel, it is very light on gameplay. You're going to see the only other gameplay element in this game outside of basically point and click the entire time. And it basically still is just point and click, except it's a point and click with a gunfight. You do get to shoot your gun now and then at enemies. But if you're looking for a really deep gameplay experience, maybe Policenauts isn't for you. This is basically an adventure game told with a visual novel style behind it. But the story that it tells, the world that it inhabits, everything that it's doing, I think is done better than any other game I've seen done before outside of maybe Snatcher. And I love visual novels, and I would say that unfortunately, a lot of the ones that we get now are very anime themed, in a way that I don't love them as much as something like this. But Policenauts, even if it is old, it hasn't aged badly at all. The art is still great, the music is still great, everything about it is still incredible. The only thing that you might struggle with a little bit is the point and click interface. I am playing this on DuckStation right now on my Windows 10 PC. You can use a controller, or you can use a mouse as well. It's definitely better with a mouse, and weirdly this does work with a light gun as well, although I don't recommend that. It's really not worth plugging in a second controller just to shoot at the screen maybe 3 minutes out of the entire experience. But however you play this game, you definitely have to check it out, because it's just a very special game. And I don't mention that on the channel very often when I call something special. There's tons of games that I cover are absolutely great, and I would consider them 10 out of 10 games, but they don't rise to the special category. A game that feels so unique, so different, and so genre changing, and pushing the entire medium of video games forward, something like Policenauts. And all I'm showing you is the intro or prologue to the game itself. There is so much more game to be had here. That's why I said that even though you might be getting slight light spoilers, honestly, there's still 90% of the entire game to experience, and it only gets better from here. Even the full motion video segments still have aged relatively well. There's a little bit of macro blocking in there, and this is the type of game where I wish Konami would release a high definition remaster, but of course, we know Konami, they're never going to satisfy their fans by doing anything we want, so this is as good as it gets, but at least it still holds up really well. And that's all that matters. Can you continue to play a game that is this old and have a good time playing it? And if you can get around the fact that it's a visual novel, if you've never played them before, kind of hang with that style, there is so much to be had here. I can guarantee you that if you play this game from start to finish, you're going to become a very big fan of it. But I'm curious, have you ever played Policenauts before? Or are you into visual novels? Leave me a comment down below, because I would be really curious to hear what your opinion on the genre is, because it seems like people either love it or hate it. And unfortunately, Lorraine has expired. That bomb did kill her, but that is just the kickoff for Jonathan going back to space, the place where he was frozen for 25 years, and going and solving this mystery. And you might think that it's just a straight murder mystery, but it takes so many twists and turns that by the end of the game, you're discovering things that you didn't even know existed. And I love the transition from Earth to space. He just looks up into the sky and this ship comes out, you're on American space lines, and you are now leaving the planet going into outer orbit. Policenauts is a special game. It's a 10 out of 10 in my book. There's not a ton of gameplay here, there's a lot of reading and a lot of clicking, but the story you're getting is incredible, and this translation is probably the best fan translation of a game ever made. Short of that, I'll be back next Tuesday with another translated video, and I'll have videos throughout the week as well. Go down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out, and play this game. See you next time. Bye-bye.